In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, where representatives from hundreds of star systems met to discuss the future of the galaxy, Earth was a joke. It wasn't a place anyone took seriously. The galaxy had been around for thousands of years, full of ancient and powerful species, each with fleets of massive warships, advanced technologies, and rich histories of conflict. Earth, in comparison, was young, small, and primitive. When Earth's representatives arrived at the Galactic Council meeting, they were met with skeptical looks and quiet whispers. Humans, with their small planet and lack of advanced technology, were considered no threat. They had no massive armies, no advanced fleets, and certainly no warships that could stand against the great powers of the galaxy. Earth had tried to join the Galactic Defense Coalition before, but each time their request was laughed off. Why would the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy need Earth? Are you sure you want to waste the Council's time? One of the alien leaders, a tall and imposing being from the Coral system, sneered as he glanced at the human delegates. His species had been around for thousands of years, with ships that could wipe out entire fleets without breaking a sweat. Humans haven't even figured out how to travel to other star systems at full speed. What could you possibly offer the galaxy? The leader of Earth's delegation, an experienced diplomat named Marcus Wells, tried to stay calm. He knew how much his people had to offer, but the history of humanity's struggle to even be heard by the Galactic Council weighed heavily on him. He stepped forward, offering a confident but careful speech. We might be young, and yes, our technology isn't as advanced as some of the more ancient species in the galaxy, Marcus began, his voice steady despite the mocking stares. But we have something that others don't. We're resourceful, creative, and adaptable. Given the opportunity, we can contribute in ways you might not expect. The Coral leader chuckled. Adaptable. You still don't even understand basic space warfare. Your ships can barely defend themselves. What good will your creativity be in the face of true power? The rest of the council members murmured in agreement. The feeling was clear. Earth had nothing to offer. Marcus paused for a moment, trying to hold back his frustration. He wasn't about to give up. We request only the chance to be part of the Defense Coalition. We're not asking for military power or advanced technologies, just a chance to learn and contribute where we can. The council erupted in laughter. The notion of Earth being any help in galactic defense was too absurd for even the most optimistic minds to entertain. A small, inexperienced planet with no significant military force couldn't possibly stand against the powerful empires that controlled the galaxy. A female delegate from the Vantori system, known for her sharp wit and even sharper tongue, stood up. Her species was known for its enormous fleets and advanced weapon systems. Perhaps Earth could contribute by providing, well, moral support, she said with a smirk. Or maybe they can send some farmers and teachers to help us fight. The entire council burst into laughter, and Marcus felt his face grow red with anger. But he held his ground. He knew the human race had been underestimated before, both by outsiders and by their own people. Earth had fought wars and survived challenges that would have broken lesser species. Humans had the will to fight, and that alone could turn the tide in ways no one had ever imagined. But despite his best efforts, Marcus knew the truth. The Galactic Council wasn't interested in hearing what humans had to offer. They weren't interested in humanity's potential. To the galaxy, Earth was a joke, nothing more than a small, insignificant planet, far from the rest of the powerful civilizations that ruled the stars. As the laughter died down and the meeting continued, Earth's representatives were ignored. The fate of their planet and the future of humanity's role in the galaxy was already sealed in the eyes of the Council. Humanity would never be able to make its mark on the galaxy, not in the way it dreamed. And yet, unbeknownst to anyone in that room, the story of Earth was far from over. In a small room far away from the council chambers, a boy sat hunched over a table, his eyes focused on a glowing screen. Adrian Locke, a 12-year-old genius from Earth, had no idea what had just happened at the council meeting. But he knew one thing. He was going to prove them wrong. Adrian had always been fascinated by space, not as a place for exploration, but as a challenge. The idea that Earth had no place in the galaxy didn't sit well with him. He had dreams of designing a ship. No, not just any ship, but the ultimate warship. A vessel so powerful, so advanced, that it would make the galaxy take notice. And that's exactly what Adrian planned to do. He wasn't just going to let Earth be laughed at. He was going to build something that would change everything. Adrian Locke was not your typical 12-year-old. While most kids his age were playing video games, hanging out with friends, or worrying about schoolwork, Adrian was spending his time building starships. Not Model 1s. Real, functional ships. He didn't care if other people thought he was strange. He didn't care that his classmates thought it was weird to spend all his time in front of glowing screens or buried in books about physics and engineering. He had one goal in mind: to prove the galaxy wrong. It all started when Adrian was very young. Even before he could walk, he was fascinated by space. His parents, both engineers, had worked on Earth's basic spacecraft, ones that barely reached the edge of the solar system. They told Adrian stories about distant stars and planets, about the vastness of the universe. But it was the idea of space travel that excited him the most. To him, the sky was not a limit, it was just the beginning. As Adrian grew, so did his knowledge. While other kids were learning simple math and science, Adrian was diving into advanced topics like quantum mechanics and propulsion systems. By the time he was 10, he was designing theoretical spacecraft that could travel beyond the farthest reaches of known space. But unlike his teachers, who saw only a bright kid, Adrian saw an opportunity. An opportunity to build something truly groundbreaking. For years, his parents had kept their son's ambitions in check. They didn't want him to become obsessed with unrealistic dreams. Focus on school, they would say. You can't just skip steps and expect to make something like that work. But Adrian was stubborn. He didn't see why he couldn't take the next step now. He wasn't waiting around for permission. At the age of 12, Adrian stumbled upon something that changed everything. A secret archive of alien technology. It was a small, hidden collection of data on Earth's most advanced space station. The information was locked away behind layers of encryption, but Adrian's talent for coding and his obsessive curiosity helped him break through every barrier. Within weeks, he had access to blueprints of starships from some of the galaxy's most powerful species. He didn't just look at them for inspiration. He studied them, tore them apart in his mind, and reimagined them with his own twist. Adrian's design was simple at first. A small, sleek ship that could withstand extreme conditions and operate with minimal resources. But as he spent more time working on it, the design evolved. He began to push the limits of what was thought possible. He envisioned a ship that could change shape to adapt to any situation. A ship that could harness energy in ways that no one had ever seen before. He called it the Invictus. The Invictus wasn't just a warship, it was a symbol. A symbol of everything Earth stood for: creativity, innovation, and the unwillingness to back down, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. While the rest of the galaxy laughed, Adrian's mind raced. He believed that if he could just get the ship built, it would show everyone that Earth was capable of greatness. That humanity was capable of more than just surviving. It could thrive, even against the most powerful species in the galaxy. But there was one problem: resources. Adrian didn't have the materials he needed to build such a ship. His home wasn't a high-tech lab, and Earth's military had no interest in his designs. In fact, most people in the scientific community thought his ideas were too outlandish to even consider. But Adrian wasn't going to give up. He began to gather support from the most unlikely places. He reached out to small groups of engineers, scientists, and inventors who still believed in the power of human ingenuity. It wasn't easy. Many people laughed at Adrian's idea, dismissing it as a fantasy. But a few saw the spark in his eyes. The same spark that had driven Earth's greatest minds throughout history. Slowly, the team grew. They met in secret, hidden from the eyes of the military and government, working on what they called Project Invictus. Adrian's knowledge of alien technologies was impressive, but it wasn't enough to build the ship alone. He needed help, and so he turned to the human spirit, creativity, resourcefulness, and a willingness to push boundaries. The team was small, but it was all Adrian needed. Together, they scoured the world for parts, scavenging materials from old spacecraft and even alien wreckage. They built the ship piece by piece, secretly, without anyone knowing. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the rest of humanity was still struggling to prove its worth to the Galactic Council. While the representatives in the council chambers laughed, Adrian worked tirelessly, determined to show that Earth had more to offer than they could possibly imagine. As months passed, Adrian's vision began to take shape. The Invictus was no longer just an idea. It was becoming a reality. The ship was designed to be the ultimate weapon. It was small, agile, and capable of outmaneuvering anything in its path. But it was also built to be intelligent, with an AI system that could think and learn, adapting to threats and finding ways to win even the most hopeless of battles. Adrian had poured every ounce of his genius into the project. The Invictus would be Earth's answer to the galaxy's doubts. It would be the ship that turned the tide for humanity and showed the rest of the galaxy that they had underestimated Earth. But there was still so much work to do. Time was running out. Would the ship be ready before Earth's fate was sealed? Would it be enough to prove that humans were more than just a joke? Adrian didn't know, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to stop until the Invictus was flying. Months had passed since Adrian and his team had begun working on the Invictus. It was a labor of love, sweat, and ingenuity. In the quiet, hidden workshop beneath the city, they continued to build in secret. The outside world remained unaware of the tiny team of rebels working tirelessly to bring humanity's greatest hope to life. Adrian had managed to gather some of the best minds Earth had to offer, people who had once been overlooked by their governments or deemed unimportant by the Galactic Council. There was Dr. Evelyn Hayes, a brilliant scientist who specialized in energy systems, and Marcus Grant, a mechanical engineer who could build anything from scrap metal. There was also Sarah Tanaka, a former military strategist who helped design the ship's tactical systems. Together, they were creating something extraordinary. It wasn't just the ship's outer design that set it apart. The Invictus was meant to be a living, breathing machine. Smart, adaptable, and powerful. Adrian had integrated an AI system that could learn from its surroundings, making the ship capable of evolving its capabilities mid-battle. But what really made it special was the ship's core. Adrian had designed it to tap into the power of the stars themselves, drawing energy from nearby suns to recharge its systems and provide limitless power. Despite their best efforts, the project was far from perfect. They encountered setbacks, materials that didn't behave the way they expected, faulty wiring that had to be fixed again and again. But each failure only made them more determined. Adrian's confidence grew with every challenge they faced. They were getting closer, and he could feel it in his bones. The Invictus was on the brink of awakening. One evening, as the group gathered to review their progress, Adrian stood before the massive holographic display in the center of the room. The design of the ship was finally complete. It was sleek, angular, with shimmering silver plating that caught the light. It looked like something from another world, a true masterpiece of human innovation. But Adrian wasn't interested in looks. He was focused on the one thing that mattered, making sure the ship could fight. "We're ready," Adrian said, his voice steady, but his heart raced with excitement. "It's time to test it." The room fell silent. The rest of the team exchanged uncertain glances. Dr. Hayes bit her lip. "Are we sure about this? We don't know if it'll work yet. We've never tested all the systems together. It could be too risky." "I've run the simulations 1,000 times," Adrian replied. "The calculations are perfect. We've done everything we can to ensure it'll work." With a deep breath, He activated the final command. The room filled with a low hum as the ship's core came to life. Energy surged through the Invictus, and its sleek, metallic surface began to glow softly. The walls of the underground facility trembled as the ship's internal systems booted up. The AI came online, its voice a calm, smooth tone. Core systems functional, all primary systems online. A cheer went up from the team, but Adrian didn't let himself get distracted. He was already focused on the next steps. This was just the beginning. They still had to see if the Invictus could fly. They still had to test it under real conditions, against the harsh vacuum of space. With a few more commands, the Invictus lifted off the ground. Slowly at first, like a newborn learning to walk, but soon it began to hover with increasing stability. The team watched in awe as the ship adjusted itself, its AI constantly analyzing and optimizing its movements. The ship was learning. "Look at it go," Sarah whispered, her voice full of admiration. "It's adapting faster than we thought." Adrian couldn't hide his grin. This is just the beginning. But the challenges were far from over. Now that the ship was online, Adrian and his team had to prepare it for space. They had to push its systems to the limit and test how it would perform when it faced the vast emptiness of space, where survival depended on perfection. There was no room for failure. The next step was the most dangerous: launching the Invictus into orbit. They moved the ship to a secluded launch site in the desert, far from prying eyes. The night was dark and silent, the only sound being the hum of the engines as they prepared for the launch. Adrian stood by the control panel, his fingers flying over the holographic interface as he monitored every system. "Ready?" Dr. Hayes asked, her voice tense. Adrian gave a small nod. "Let's do this." With a roar of power, the Invictus shot into the sky, blasting off into the atmosphere. The ground trembled beneath them as the ship ascended higher and higher, breaking through the layers of clouds and reaching the upper atmosphere. Adrian's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the ship's energy levels climb, the core pulsing with raw power. "Everything's stable," Marcus said from the monitoring station. "We're entering orbit." But just as they thought it was over, a warning light flashed on the console. Something wasn't right. The ship's systems were overheating. "Shut it down. Shut it down now," Dr. Hayes screamed, but Adrian didn't panic. He trusted his design. With quick thinking, Adrian accessed the emergency override and rerouted the excess energy into a secondary cooling system. The warning light turned off, and the ship stabilized. For the first time since the project began, Adrian allowed himself to relax. They had done it. The Invictus was ready. The Invictus was no longer just a dream. It was real, a true technological marvel. And its successful launch into space was a clear signal that Earth was no longer a laughingstock. Adrian Locke had built the ship, and now it was time for the galaxy to see what humanity was capable of. The team celebrated their success quietly, knowing that their achievement was far from being recognized by the rest of the world. They hadn't just built a starship, they had created the key to Earth's future. But Adrian wasn't interested in fame or praise. He was focused on the bigger picture, proving that humanity could stand tall in a galaxy that had long dismissed them. The news of the Invictus's successful launch spread quickly. At first, people on Earth were skeptical. It wasn't that they didn't believe in Adrian's genius. It was simply that the idea of humanity having a warship capable of competing with alien technology seemed impossible. The galaxy had ignored Earth for so long, and the idea of a small group of humans building a ship that could stand against the might of advanced civilizations was laughable. But as more tests were conducted, the doubts began to fade. The Invictus performed flawlessly in space. Its AI system had learned to anticipate problems and solve them before they became major issues. The ship could change its configuration in mid-flight, adjusting to different types of space environments. Its weapons systems were sophisticated, utilizing alien technology that Adrian had integrated with his own designs. The Invictus was more than just a starship. It was a symbol of everything humanity had to offer. News outlets around the world began covering the story. The Invictus quickly became the talk of the planet. People couldn't stop talking about it. How a young boy, with little more than his wits and a dream, had created something that could challenge the might of any galactic empire. With a press of a button, the Invictus's weapons systems powered up, glowing with a pale blue light. The ship's AI system quickly assessed the threat. It wasn't just programmed for battle. It was capable of learning from its surroundings, adjusting its strategies mid-fight. The AI spoke in a smooth, unhurried voice, a calm presence in the midst of the tension. Enemy fleet detected. Initiating battle protocol. The Zaran ships began to position themselves, as if preparing for the first strike. A transmission blared over the comms, the voice of the Zaran commander cutting through the static. "Human vessel, stand down. You are outmatched. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared." Adrian's eyes narrowed. He could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on him. The whole of Earth's future rested on this fight. If they failed, the galaxy would see humanity as weak, easy to conquer. If they succeeded, Earth's place among the stars would be secured forever. "We don't surrender," Adrian replied, his voice steady. "We stand our ground." Without further hesitation, the Zaran fleet fired. A barrage of energy blasts shot through space, a storm of brilliant light hurtling toward the Invictus. The ship's shields flared brightly as the first blasts made contact, but they held. The energy deflected harmlessly off the ship's hull. The Invictus was designed to withstand anything the Zaran could throw at it. "Shields at 80%, Marcus called out from his station. "The first hits are holding, but we need to move. They'll adjust." Adrian knew they couldn't just sit back and wait. The Invictus had to show its superiority, not just in strength, but in strategy. With a flick of his wrist, he sent the ship into a sharp, evasive maneuver, twisting the Invictus into a hard dive that sent it darting past the first wave of Zaran fire. The ship's thrusters roared as it shot through space, its AI calculating the best route to avoid another incoming attack. "We've got them on the move," Sarah said, her fingers flying over the tactical interface. "We've got a clear shot at the lid ship. Should we fire?" Adrian hesitated for a moment. The Invictus was a weapon, but it was more than that. It was humanity's statement to the galaxy. He didn't want to destroy if he didn't have to, but there was no time to waste. Fire. The Invictus unleashed a barrage of energy beams from its forward cannons. The energy surged toward the lid Zaran ship, hitting its shields with a loud crack. The impact was felt through the ship, and for a moment, it seemed as if the entire fleet hesitated. The Zaran commander's voice came through the comms again, his tone colder this time. "You dare fight us, humans. You will regret this decision." But Adrian didn't care about threats anymore. The time for talk was over. The Invictus shifted into a new position, its weapons powering up again. This time, the attack was more precise. Instead of firing wildly, Adrian ordered the ship to target specific systems, the Zaran fleet's weak points. "We've identified their power cores," Sarah said, her voice filled with excitement. "We can take out their shields from the inside." "Do it," Adrian said, not wasting a moment. The Invictus fired once more, its beams slicing through space with laser-like precision. The shots hit their marks, striking the power cores of two of the Zaran ships. The shields flickered and failed, leaving the ships vulnerable. It was a major blow. The Zaran fleet was thrown into disarray. Their formation broke as they tried to regroup and adjust. The Invictus moved swiftly, using its speed and agility to stay one step ahead, dodging fire from the remaining ships. For the first time, the Zaran Empire began to feel the weight of Earth's new power. "We've got them on the run," Marcus said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Adrian kept his eyes focused on the battle. "We're not done yet. Stay sharp." The Zaran fleet wasn't finished. They were regrouping, preparing for a counterattack. The Invictus had won the first round, but the battle was far from over. Adrian knew they would need every ounce of their ship's power, every bit of their strategy, to win this fight. The galaxy had watched Earth for centuries, waiting for the moment when the human race would finally make its mark. This was that moment, and Adrian Locke, the young boy who had dreamed of this day, was leading humanity's charge into a new age. The battle in space had raged for hours, the stars outside the Invictus turning into streaks of light as the ship darted and weaved through enemy fire. Adrian Locke stood at the helm, his face a mask of determination. The Zeran fleet, once so sure of their victory, was now in chaos. Their ships were damaged, their coordination faltering, and their shields were failing. But Adrian knew this wasn't over yet. He turned to Sarah, who was focused on the tactical display. "Where do we stand?" "We've taken down 2 ships, but they're regrouping," Sarah replied, her voice calm despite the intensity of the situation. "They're trying to consolidate their firepower and strike back. We need to stay ahead of them." Adrian's mind raced. The Invictus was fast, powerful, and equipped with the best humanity had to offer, but it couldn't sustain this pace forever. The longer the battle dragged on, the more their systems would be taxed. Earth's entire future hinged on this one battle, and he wasn't about to let it slip through their fingers. "Let's change the game," Adrian said, his voice low but confident. He didn't need to explain further. Sarah understood immediately and started to input the new battle plan into the ship's eye. The Invictus began to move in a new direction, pulling away from the main cluster of the Zeran fleet. Adrian gave the order to power down the forward cannons, focusing instead on the ship's specialized stealth technology. The ship would go dark, using the advanced cloaking system that Adrian and his team had integrated into the ship only days before. It was a risk, firing on the Zeran fleet while cloaked could be difficult, but if they pulled it off, it would be a game-changer. Adrian gave one last look at the Zeran fleet, now in the process of realigning their forces. They were vulnerable, but if they noticed the Invictus slipping away, they might change their tactics. He couldn't afford that. "Activate stealth mode," Adrian ordered. The ship's systems hummed quietly as it powered down its external energy signals. The Invictus vanished from the radar of the Zeran ships, becoming as invisible as a shadow in the vastness of space. Even with their advanced sensors, the Zeran couldn't detect the Invictus in its cloaked state. For a few moments, there was silence. Adrian felt the tension building in the air as they waited for the right moment to strike. The Invictus was now just another silent presence in the cosmos, and it was time for them to make their move. "Fire," Adrian said, his voice sharp and decisive. The Invictus emerged from the shadows, its weapons powered up, and aimed directly at the heart of the Zeran fleet. The surprise attack caught them completely off guard. A series of energy blasts erupted from the ship, striking directly at the enemy vessels. With their shields already weakened, the attacks found their marks, punching through the damaged defenses and disabling key systems. In the chaos, Adrian gave the order to retreat once more into stealth. The Invictus disappeared again, leaving the Zeran scrambling to adjust their tactics. "Good shot," Sarah said with a smile, though she knew they had to remain vigilant. "They won't be able to predict our next move." But Adrian wasn't satisfied with just damaging the Zeran ships. He wanted to finish this fight. The Invictus's systems were fully operational, and its AI had calculated the perfect trajectory to hit the Zeran flagship, the largest and most powerful ship in their fleet. Destroying it would cripple the entire Zeran operation, and Adrian knew this was their best chance to end the battle. "Prepare for the final strike," he ordered, his gaze unwavering. "Let's take out their flagship." As the Invictus locked onto the flagship's coordinates, Marcus quickly ran through the final calculations. He was tense but steady. "We've got one shot at this. If we miss, they'll be on us in seconds." Adrian nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He was ready. Humanity was ready. The galaxy had underestimated Earth for too long, but now, humanity's power was undeniable. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The Invictus unleashed everything it had. A barrage of high-powered beams rocketed toward the Zeran flagship, each shot calculated to hit its weak spots. The Invictus's AI adjusted its trajectory on the fly, ensuring the shots landed with pinpoint accuracy. The first hit landed squarely on the flagship's main power core. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure, and a massive explosion tore through its exterior, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The second shot followed, landing directly in the center of the ship's weapons array. The flagship's massive cannons erupted in flames, their systems overloaded and destroyed in an instant. For a moment, there was silence. The Zeran flagship hung motionless in space, its engines completely disabled. Adrian watched with bated breath, knowing the fight was nearly over. Then came the final blow. The Invictus fired one last shot, this time aimed at the flagship's reactor core. The explosion that followed was catastrophic. The Zeran flagship was obliterated in a burst of energy that lit up the darkness of space. The remaining Zeran ships scattered in all directions, their morale shattered. Adrian's voice rang out, calm and victorious. Mission accomplished. Earth stands strong. The galaxy had watched Earth struggle for centuries, laughing at the idea of humans becoming a threat. But now, after the fall of the Zeran flagship, there was no more laughter. The Invictus had proven to the universe that Earth was not to be underestimated. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The battle was over. The Zeran fleet had been scattered, their flagship reduced to a floating wreck. Adrian stood on the command deck of the Invictus, the weight of the victory settling in. The crew was exhausted but proud. They had faced overwhelming odds, and humanity had come out on top. But as Adrian looked out into the vastness of space, he knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had just witnessed Earth's might. No longer would humans be seen as weak or insignificant. Earth was now a force to be reckoned with, and the universe would need to respect that. Message sent, Sarah reported as she turned from her station. The Zeran are in full retreat. Their remaining ships are pulling out of the system. Adrian nodded, though his mind was already racing ahead. What about the other factions in the galaxy? What's the status on them? The Zeran were the most immediate threat, Sarah explained. But there are other factions out there. Some may try to take advantage of the chaos. We'll need to remain vigilant. Adrian understood. The victory over the Zeran was significant, but it wasn't the end of their struggles. There were other civilizations in the galaxy, some of whom might view humanity's rise as a challenge to their power. Alert the Council, Adrian ordered. Prepare for a summit. The galaxy needs to hear from Earth. The crew got to work immediately. News of the Zeran fleet's defeat was already spreading through the galaxy, but now it was time for humanity to make its official statement. The Council, a gathering of representatives from Earth's most powerful nations, would now address the wider galaxy and lay out Earth's intentions. Hours later, Adrian stood at the center of a massive council room, the eyes of the galaxy's leaders focused on him. He had never imagined himself in this position, but here he was. Behind him, the holoscreen displayed images of the Invictus and the destruction of the Zeran fleet. He had come a long way since the first days of humanity's space exploration. He cleared his throat and began. I stand before you today, not just as a representative of Earth, but as a symbol of what humanity can accomplish. The Zeran fleet came to our doorstep, thinking we would be easy prey. They were wrong. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The room was silent, every leader hanging on his every word. Humanity is not a race to be underestimated, Adrian continued. We may be young, but we have learned quickly. We have adapted. And we have proven today that we can defend our home, and that we will protect what is ours. We will not be a pawn in anyone's game. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, and Adrian could see the doubt in some of the faces of the alien leaders. They had seen the power of Earth's forces firsthand, and now they understood the cost of underestimating humanity. But Adrian added, "This victory is not about conquest. It is not about domination. We are here to form alliances, to work together with the rest of the galaxy for mutual prosperity. Earth does not seek war, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." The council remained silent for a long moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Finally, one of the alien leaders, a tall, thin figure from the Aldar race, spoke up. "You speak of peace, Earthling," the Aldar leader said, his voice low and resonant. "But your actions show strength. The galaxy has always been ruled by power. You have shown that your power is formidable." Adrian nodded. "We will not shy away from our strength, but we also believe in diplomacy. We want to create a future where we all have a place in the stars, where the mistakes of the past don't repeat. Earth is open to dialogue. We seek peace, but we will not compromise our sovereignty." Another leader, this time from the Krith Empire, chimed in. "Your words are bold, but the galaxy does not take kindly to sudden shifts in the balance of power. How can we trust that Earth will remain committed to peace?" Adrian's gaze was steady. Earth will remain committed to peace, as long as peace remains the choice of those we engage with. But we will not sit idle while threats linger. Our fleet will defend us, but our hands are open to those who seek cooperation. The room was quiet once more as the leaders deliberated. Adrian's heart raced, but he kept his composure. This was humanity's moment to step into the galaxy's spotlight, not with arrogance, but with a firm resolve to be part of the future, not its victim. Finally, the Aldar leader spoke again. "You have earned our respect, Earthling. We will stand with you." The Krith leader nodded. "We agree. Earth has shown its strength. We will extend a hand of alliance." A ripple of agreement spread through the room as one by one, the representatives from different factions pledged to work with Earth, forming a new coalition. The galaxy had been forced to reckon with humanity's rise, and now they were ready to accept Earth as an equal. Adrian stepped down from the podium, his heart swelling with pride. He had done it. Earth had done it. The galaxy had laughed at them, but now they would have to respect them, and the universe would be a very different place moving forward.